Okay, good morning and welcome to Mishna Yomi. Today is Terumos Perek Gimel. Mishnah is based in Gimel 2 and 3. Mishnah base says Nafla Achas Mehen Lesocha Chulin. We had a case yesterday where there was a suffix, right? You took off a barrel of wine, and then after you took it off, you realized that the truma you took off was vinegar. It already turned into vinegar, and vinegar is not the same min. It's not the same species as wine. It's foreign. It's not just that it's inferior wine. It's actually not wine at all. So therefore, if at the time when you're taking off the truma it already was vinegar, it was ineffective. But you don't know. Maybe at the time of truma, you took off truma, it was wine. And only afterwards you discovered it turned into chometz. So it's a suffix whether you're trying to take off truma a second time. And both of these trumos are suffix. The suffix midoraisa. If we're dealing with truma doraisa, the suffix midoraisa, whether the truma is valid or not. So now you have these two, let's say bottles of wine. Actually, bottles of chometz, I guess. Whatever it is. Well, the second one is a bottle of wine, right? You want to take off wine. The first one, I guess, was chometz. Now it's vinegar. So now they fell in nafla achas mehelasocha chulin eina midamasan. So one of these bottles of wine or vinegar fell into chulin. So it doesn't make it dimua. Dimua means where you have, it's not batel. Truma is batel 1 in 100, 1 to 100. It's batel. Let's say you had 50 to 1. So 50 to 1, it's not batel. Midarabban, even though daraisa it's batel v'rov. Midarabban by truma deramachme, it's not batel. Only in 100 it's batel. So it's batel. You have 50 to 1. So therefore, it makes it called dimua midarabban, and they consider dimua. It's also eat midarabban, even though it's 1 in 50, because it's not batel midarabban. But if it's a suffix, so suffix derabanan lakula, so it's not midameya and it's batal barov. Nafla shniya lamakom acher and midamasan. And again, if the second bottle of wine falls into another barrel of wine, it doesn't make that dimua unless it's more than rov. Naflu shteyan lamakom echad. But if both of these bottles fell into one place, where now you for sure have truma midamas kiktana shतेyan, you go after the smaller volume. So whichever one of these trumas is a smaller volume, that is how you consider how much truma is in there. Because for sure there's at least that much truma in there, and therefore it would have the status of dimua until you have 100 to 1, which would make it batel, even the rabbanon. Mishna Gimel Ashutfin Shatar Muzachar Zeh Rekiva Omer Truma Shnei and Truma. Now you have two partners. They own, a vineyard, let's say. So they didn't consult each other. One took off truma, and then another didn't tell his friend. He also took off truma. Rekiva says both of them are effective as truma. The Chacham say truma's arisha and truma. I mean, they own the same thing. It's the same produce. You don't have to take off truma a second time. So therefore, only the first one is truma. Rabbi Yossi Omer, the Rav explains. Rabbi Yossi is really explaining the shita rabbanan im taram arishon kishir. When do we say that the truma, the first one, is the real truma? If he gave the shear, we're going to see the rabbanan. They said you're supposed to give 1/50th to the kohen. 1/50th of your produce. That's a shuma gedola. That's a shear. Ain't shuma sasheni truma. So if he gave 1/50th of the produce, then the second partner's truma is invalid. And if he didn't give the shear, he gave less than 1/50th. So then we don't reckon his as truma. Only the second one is considered truma. I'm going to explain it more in depth, which we hold like Rabbi Yossi and the Chachamim. Why is it that when it comes to the shutfim, this applies, right? This applies that only one is considered truma, and it depends on its kashir, right? The question obviously is like I explained many times, that there's two mitzvahs by truma. One is the hafrasha. We said that it's a mitzvah beinadin lamakom, that even chita achas poteres kol akri, even one stalk of grain. So what does it matter if you gave kashir 1/50th? Even if you gave 1/1,000th of your kri, it would pater it from shus hamaisa. So the Gemara is saying ain't truma. The Mishnah says ain't truma. It's not valid at all over here. Right, it should be valid at least to pater your kri from truma, right? The shear of 1/50th is a generous ayin. It's supposed to give a matana to the kohen, so it should be a halfway truma. It should be invalid if it has a matana to the kohen, but it should be considered truma to pater the other produce. We're gonna have to investigate why that's not the case over here. Stay tuned for Mishnah coming up next.